Hi, and welcome everybody to another edition of the Winner's Circle Sports Betting Podcast. It's Thursday, April the 28th. And like every Thursday, I'm joined by Mr. Doug Upstone, one of the finest handicappers in the country. And you can find him at docsports.com. Doug, what's the temperature in Arizona today? I haven't asked you that in a long time.
I haven't volunteered it either. I should qualify that too. Today is it's about normal. I think I actually don't even know what the average, but I just see in my computer here it's 88 degrees. So I think the high is supposed to be 91. So that's for this time of year. That's maybe a little bit above average, but not exceedingly so. But the humidity is like 15%. And so it's no different, Ross. If 88 would be like for you would be 75.
Yeah.
This time of year.
It's a dry heat, just like it is in Las Vegas. Yes.
In this case, it's drier than normal, but yeah. So it's very good. So it's just a very pleasant time of year for sure. This and October are for especially those that don't like the heat, perfect time of year.
It's a balmy 43 in Western New York.
Can we put balmy in quotation marks?
Anyway, it's our Major League Baseball free pick edition today. As you could see what my pick is going to be in the background, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But we a couple of interesting notes to talk about. Boy, oh boy, the NBA playoffs. I know it's a baseball edition, but it's still our sports betting podcast. In the NBA playoffs, which right now is at a high interest level, a lot of unders, Doug. I mean, I saw, just happened to see today, NBA Eastern Conference playoff games have played 19-3 to the under thus far. Wow.
Yeah, it's just amazing. In fact, overall, it's 31-14. Okay, wow. for all games. And as you might expect, it's pretty much all levels. Now, this is something that I keep track of and just more for fun than anything else, and just look for certain situations. For example, 210 to 219 totals, 219 and a half, 11-3 under. Okay, 220 to 229 and a half, 13-6 under. So it's just, and, it kind of just seems it's even, they would say, well, defense, in the playoffs, the pace is slower. But, for example, certain teams, why would Minnesota and Memphis, who go up and down the floor, why would they decide to just completely play a different style of basketball?
Yeah, and slow the pace down. Right. Yeah, exactly.
It makes no sense, and there's a few other teams that are involved in that too. And it's I get the whole defensive thing, but it just, I don't know. I'm not buying into that, but the numbers are the numbers, and you have to consider those from a handicapping standpoint and from a betting standpoint. But I'm just not into the whole thing of, why would you go against how you normally play?
Yeah, and it's a great point, Doug, because I noticed the same thing. The only thing I will say about the Minnesota and Memphis series is that series is averaging like a combined 70 free throws per game. So if you're just purely looking at the field goal attempts for each team, that number of free throws per game will certainly affect that. But I do agree when looking at it from just if you're viewing the game itself, it's not as entertaining as you're used to seeing with these two teams who usually play matador defense. And as you alluded to, like to get up and down. Both teams turn the ball over a lot. But, there's a difference between bad defense and undisciplined defense. And these two are textbook teams for undisciplined defense in my estimation. They foul way too much. And I don't know if it's the way the series is being refereed or just it's become more physical between these two teams. I don't know, but that's an awful lot of free throw attempts per game, 70. I mean, usually a high number would be somewhere between 50 and 55. And these teams are averaging 70 free throw attempts per game throughout the course of the series. The other thing, Doug, the Utah Jazz, 23 out of 93 in the last 3 games from 3-point range, 23.6%. This is a team that's hung their hat over the last 3 seasons on their 3-point shooting prowess. It's one thing to shoot bad, but this goes against what they've done all year. It goes hand in hand with Doug's point. They averaged 40 3-point attempts per game this year, and that's been a pretty consistent figure with them, like 40 through 43, somewhere in that range, Doug, over the last few seasons. This series, they're only averaging 29 3-point attempts. So not only is Dallas shutting them down, in Utah, I don't know, Utah had an awful lot of wide open looks last night, or the game before, and they just weren't knocking them down. But why they would go away from the percentage of 3-point shots compared to 2-point shots is beyond me.
I just don't think they're getting the looks that they want. And the other thing too is that, you know, I saw this on somewhere on Twitter today. Somebody was talking about what coaching. Oh, I think Shaq made a point that coaching matters. Okay, in the playoffs, and I 100% agree. I mean, I know plenty of people say, well, you know what, you just roll the ball out, you make a few substitutions, and this and that. No. I don't know if I said this here or not recently, but you know, when you can put all your eggs in one basket to focus on one team, and these coaches have that ability to do that and just study a team, you know, every aspect of them, you're going to be able to take away things that your opponent likes to do. And so then they have to figure out how to counter. You know, this isn't new though for Utah, because how many times have we thought they were going to be in the finals? Not necessarily this year, but in, let's just say, the 3 prior years. I mean, we expected them to be there. They had the best record in the West, or they were second, and they never get close. And you know, the dependence on the 3, you know, especially when games are tighter, when the pressure's more on, you know, it's one thing to go up against, the Detroit Pistons and jack up and make a bunch of threes. It's quite a bit difference against a quality opponent that knows how you play, that understands how you play, and can shut down enough aspects of your game to have you play differently. And then you get nervous because of it.
Yeah. I mean, especially if your field goal attempts are in the 70s and you're only getting 29 threes off, and you know, you start doing the math and it's totally out of character. And be honest with you, Doug, they can't throw the ball in the ocean from the pier right now, so they're not helping themselves as well. So there's something to be said for that, what you just mentioned, Doug. Teams that are reliant on their ability to make 3-point shots. I don't think any team is going to be able to go all the way in the NBA in terms of winning a world championship with that type of style. If you look at past NBA champions, they've been very balanced teams in that regard. Some of them might even shoot in the mid-30s in terms of 3-point shooting. So there's a lot of different, and you have to defend. You know, you have to defend in playoff time. You know, Dallas to me is a very underrated defensive team, and I don't think they get enough credit for that. They've shut Utah down completely in this series, and there's something to be said for what you just said about coaching in a playoff series. I'm going to be a little bit of a homer here when I bring this example up. How good a coach Lindy Ruff was when he was with Buffalo here at playoff time. He never had the most talented team in the league, but he was a master at studying one opponent, exposing their weaknesses. And, you know, they never won it all. They got to the Stanley Cup final. And again, they were a low budget team in a small market. And you could apply that to any sport. You may dominate against a team during the regular season, but now you're playing them every night. And you're able to make the proper adjust. And the other thing is making the proper adjustments from game to game. That's another thing too. So,
absolutely. I mean, that's the whole thing of coaching. You know, I mean, it's not an accident. Now, no question, the Red Auerbachs, the Phil Jacksons, you know, of the world, it's no, you know, they had great talent, but they also knew how to push the right buttons in order to get their guys to play the way that needed to be. Okay, and that's why they won the championships. Like I said, had great players, but they also had a great coach.
They certainly did, and And those coaches, the players knew the system and they stuck to the system and they believed in the system. We're seeing that. I know you wanted to talk about this topic. The Boston Celtics, new coach comes in. They struggle out of the gate for the first couple months, but he implemented a system and the players bought in. And not only they bought in, but once they started to perfect the system in which he wanted to play on both ends of the floor, look at the results. Boston, I believe right now has won 30 of their last 36 or 29 of their last 35. Talk about gelling at the right time. Anyway, Doug, you had some thoughts in that regard.
Yeah. Well, actually, I just have one thing. A prediction, okay? And you could write it down, whatever you want to do with it, is that how Boston has built their team starting basically this year is that to have a bunch of guys that are, let's just say 6'5" or, but not super tall, but, up to 6'10", maybe 6'11", but at least 6'5", to where they, with their defense, they all have super long arms. They take players out of how they like to play. They become more physical. And I firmly believe this will be the next wave of how teams will be built in the NBA, because you can see by how Boston plays, they can take away a lot of what teams want to do against them by their defense, and they're extremely athletic. So I think you'll see that coming soon to a city near you in the NBA.
Yeah, I think
it's going to be the thing.
Sure. And it's a great point, because I think too many times us as fans and even NBA general managers, they focus on a player's offensive upside and don't concentrate on the other way. And Boston, to me, their perimeter players are, they have a lot of length and a lot of athletic ability as well. And that really shuts down the perimeter play of the opposition, not only from outside shooting standpoint, but from trying to take guys off the dribble. They're very difficult to play against in that regard. There's something about the Red Sox as well. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut your thought.
No. I to that point is, I mean, it looked like Kyrie Irving was about 5'11".
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, on the court and with that smaller body frame. So even though he's super quick and he can get by guys, when you have that length and size, even if you get beat off the initial dribble, you're still in position from a reverse position to block his shot, or then you could focus, or you could lead him into somebody that's your big guy, and it just takes away his game.
Yeah, you get Robert Williams back in the middle of the series, who anchors their defense. Very undervalued player and underrated player in terms of how they like to play. Not as an NBA player in general. He's not going to wow you with his scoring ability. He's not going to be a guy who gets 16 rebounds per game, but he really anchors their defense and plays within their system. Something about the Red Sox you wanted to talk about as well.
No, I know what, before I said the Red Sox, it was, I said it mistakenly.
Oh, okay.
I meant to say Celtics, not the Red Sox.
I was going to say, the way the Red Sox are going right now, who the hell wants to talk about them?
But
anyway,
I will now,
go ahead.
Professor Benjamin, I did some additional homework, also, and I brought something, so I will let it go right here. So far in baseball, through Wednesday, April 27th, there have been 150 unders and there have been 103 overs throughout all the ties. That's 59.3%.
Yeah.
In the last 10 days, it's actually slightly higher at 60.3%. So why? I'm not going to buy the weather, because every year the weather is always cold, or with rare exception, it's always cold somewhere, and especially in the northern cities.
Yeah.
So that's just a given. That infrequently changes. So that's out. The lack of spring training, I can kind of go along with that, from the standpoint. But if anything, the pitchers shouldn't be that far ahead of the hitters based on that, because they had less time to prepare. And as we've seen, starters are throwing 70 to 80 pitches most times. So they're throwing even less, which means more dependency on the bullpen. So what has changed? Well, first of all, every team now uses a humidor, okay, across the board. So has that changed how baseballs are? Well, I think there's something to that. The baseballs are not as dry. They're technically more moist than because of that. And so when you have that, the ball is denser. Yeah. I think that's a big thing. I think that with pitchers are throwing fewer fastballs than ever before, or I don't know if ever before, but more recently. So I think that's a big thing. So batters are swinging at breaking pitches, which are technically, if they're thrown properly, they're not as easy to hit. So I think that's another factor. And what a lot of the baseball pitchers are talking about is the ball is not good. In other words, they believe, normally when there's complaints, it's the core is too tightly wound. That must not be the case right now, because there's been people on Twitter making fun of announcers calling balls hit that end up being warning track home runs, and they're basically making a home run call. I think I think they're fooled by the sound. Okay, is that there's a distinct sound to a home run.
Yeah.
And so with that, they're hearing that sound, but the ball's not traveling as far.
Yeah.
So I think, and I don't think this is good for baseball because, let's face it, what the old thing, chicks dig the long ball.
Yeah.
I think there's something to that, and people like to see runs scored.
Absolutely. And, well, at least a balance, you know what I mean?
Right.
When we're talking about 59.3% since the start of the year, games going under, there's no balance there. My personal feeling is somewhere along the line, it'll come back the other way and it'll come in waves, but not if what Doug is alluding to is true. And I'm not saying that he's shooting from the hip on this, because he obviously has studied and researched what he just said. Humidors, correct me if I'm wrong, Doug, wasn't there a point early on at Coors Field where they started to use humidors on the baseball because of the, obviously the conditions there and balls flying out of the ballpark left and right? Yep. Yeah. So, I mean,
they were the first one, and then forever the only one. Okay. Until this year, to where all the teams now are doing it. And I know the intention is to have more consistency in the ball, but what it's doing is making it consistently less interesting. And then when you have this many strikeouts already, and then you take out the home run component and you lower the score, not a good mix of trying to bring new people to watch baseball.
Yeah. And the specialization in baseball now with the bullpens, as you said, short spring training, pitchers typically are ahead of hitters. I mean, that's the old cliche anyway, right? Coming out of spring training. And you weren't able to stretch your starters out, but because the game has got so specialized now, and we're seeing guys being pulled in the 5th and 6th inning, even though they have a no hitter or their pitch count doesn't dictate that they should be. I think that might be a contributing factor as well. And I think a lot of these relievers know their specific role now, where back in the old days, and I don't know, old days, maybe even a decade ago, relief pitchers did not know when they were going to get the call. The only ones who did was it started with the closer, and then all of a sudden it was a setup man. Now we've evolved to the 7th inning guy. You know what I mean? So it used to be you brought a guy in for mop-up duty, you brought a guy in for long relief. Now it's almost like you go out to the bullpen as a pitcher mentally, and when a specific situation comes up that there's a high probability you're going to get the call, depending on your rest, how many innings you've logged over the last couple of days. So anyway, interesting topic, Doug, no doubt about it. And you want to give the folks a free pick for Friday the 29th.
As a matter of fact, I do. And I'm going to go back to the same team that I did not win with on Tuesday, which is the Colorado Rockies. They got smoked in that game on Tuesday, and they got swept in the 4-game series at Philadelphia. So that was, they took it on the chin. But the good news for Colorado, they're going home and they're going to play Cincinnati the worst team in baseball. The Reds are, after their loss on Thursday, they are now 3-16, Ross.
Wow.
Now, if you look at any statistical categories that are relevant, you'll find offensively and in pitching, Cincinnati is in the bottom 4, if not the basement, in virtually all of them.
That's not a good combination, Doug.
No, it's consistent. If we like consistency, well, you got that. And of course, this is a team that tried to fool their fans, saying this upcoming year when they traded guys during the spring and didn't sign other guys, that they're not rebuilding, they're retooling. Okay, well, guess what? I think Reds fans have caught on to that nonsense at this point. Now, the Reds, they're going to come in with their hard-throwing right-hander, Hunter Green, to be their starting pitcher. And if you've been following baseball, he's the hardest thrower now in the game. He's had his first start, I think he had like 20-some pitches that were triple digits. But you know what? He's allowing a hit an inning. His location is either not great, okay, or the movement on his ball is not exceptional. So the triple digits don't mean much, against major league hitters if you don't have some movement. Now, the Reds are going to face Austin Gumper Austin Gumper. Now, he's nothing special. I'd be the first to admit that. He doesn't have great command in a general sense. He's just not a very good pitcher. And for the life of me, I have no idea. I could go on another tangent on this one, but how Colorado doesn't find guys like Tampa Bay that are 6'3" to 6'5" that throw 97 miles an hour and have breaking pitches and off-speed pitches, but they don't. And they haven't. So that's why they're That's why they're Colorado and Tampa Bay's Tampa Bay, right? So that comes down to it. So in this one, Gomper has faced the Reds before. He's got a 2.70 ERA against them in games he started. And that was against far better offensive teams than the Reds have this year. I got no problem. Last I saw was -130 for Colorado, Ross. I have no problem taking the -130 with Colorado to end their losing streak and to keep the Reds on their woes this season.
The hapless Reds, 3-16. I don't know if anybody would have predicted that, though. They're retooling. When I hear retooling, it's not a good sign. Retooling is just a cheap way of saying we're not going to be very good this year. Anyway, I got a free pick as well. The Phillies at the Mets at Citi Field in New York. Right now, as we speak, folks, and again, we're taping on Thursday, the 28th, for games being played on Friday, the 29th, and it's better than 24 hours more away. And so keep that in mind when you view the video. But right now, as we speak, there are most totals on this game are 7.5. There is one site, Caesars, that does have an 8. So that's what I'm going to go with because they're one of my sports books that I use. McGill, Tyler McGill. Is it McGill, Doug? You mentioned this the other day.
Yes, I believe it's MEG, so it's Megal.
Megal, okay. Tyler Megal.
It's Tyler for sure.
Tylor is his first name.
It's Tyler. We know we have that for sure.
Somebody
go Tyler M. How about Tyler M?
We got a difficult last name to pronounce, so let's call him Tyler with an O instead of an E. Let's screw everybody up, especially guys like us. Anyway, it's a conspiracy, Doug. We're not paranoid. They're just all after us. Anyway, Tyler McGill is 4-0 this year in his team starts with a 2.35 ERA and an 0.91 WHIP, and he's only walked 3 hitters in 23 innings pitched. We saw signs of this kid last year, how good he was going to be, and he certainly lived up to the expectations so far this year. One shaky start, but otherwise he's been tremendous. He did start one game at Philadelphia earlier this season on April 12th, 5 1/3 innings of scoreless baseball, allowing 3 hits, walking none. The Mets at home this year are 5-2, and their bullpen is a good reason why, as the Mets relievers have a very good 2.05 ERA and 1.05 WHIP at home in those 7 games. And the Mets currently are -120 on the money line in this contest. And again, I have to make sense of this because it's just not a trend. I don't like just giving out trends, team trends that seem more coincidental than have a purpose or substance. But the Mets have gone 24-7 to the under at home since the start of last year, when their money line is between -100 and -150. You know, at any time a game is deemed to be somewhat of an even matchup involving the Mets at home, there might be some credence to that. I don't know, but it's worth mentioning. Aaron Nola gets a start for the Philadelphia Phillies. After a shaking opening day start, he's really came on over the last 3 starts with a 2.87 ERA and an 0.96 WHIP. The Philly bullpen, which was terrible to start the year, over their last 8 games, they have an ERA of under 3. So that's very encouraging. And Philadelphia, here's another great team trend that I think has a lot of credence and a lot of substance, is the Phillies, since the start of last year, when facing a National League starting pitcher with a WHIP, there's that word, Doug, a WHIP of 105 or better, which I alluded to McGill's WHIP of 091, so 105 or better. They've gone 16-4 to the under. Again, Philadelphia 16-4 to the under since the start of last year when facing a National League starting pitcher with a WHIP of 105 or better. And the weather forecast calling for winds blowing in, I should say, from left center field at 10 to 11 miles an hour. Not a big factor, but certainly you never know. Might hold one from going out of the ballpark, Doug. I'm going to go with the Mets and the Phillies to go under the total of 8. And Doug Upstone likes the Colorado Rockies. Once again, twice in a week, -130 over those hapless and terrible Cincinnati Reds, who will go into that matchup with a record of 3-16. Anyway, Doug, tell the folks how you've been doing it late and what you might have coming up.
Well, you know, one thing I'm going to have coming up is a USFL pick. You know that's going to happen. Okay,
hey, you're off to a great start. 2-0.
So I had to get that out there. Yeah. So NBA action. Actually, on Thursday night, I got a 5-unit total ready to go in the NBA. Continue to do extremely well at 47-23, up almost $7,000 in terms of profit. So we'll see how these game 6s play out on Thursday night, because if one or more of them, that means Saturday, there's going to be some game 7. So we'll have to watch for that. Otherwise, you know, hey, just rolling right along. Major League Baseball, I just got to get my teams to score some runs, Ross. I don't know what I have to do, but you know what? There's nothing I can do about it. I can only pick the teams, and if they don't score, there's nothing you can do about it. So this is going to turn around. That actually encouraged me to believe that I'm going to have a really sharp turnaround, because it's not necessarily picks that aren't poor picks. It's just the teams aren't scoring. So it's one of those.
You're getting the pitching. I mean,
it's one of those things. I mean, I had the Dodgers each of the last 2 days. Okay, they scored 1 run in 17 innings against Arizona. I mean, that's not going to happen a lot against Arizona, anyways. Let alone being a team like Dodgers. But you know what? Hey, that's part of handicapping. That's part of sports betting. You roll with the punches, and if you are smart enough to figure out what the issue is, sometimes, you know what, you just got to let it be and it'll take care of itself. And I'm firmly convinced that's what's going to happen there. NHL playoffs. Okay. I am done for NHL for the rest of the regular season. I'll be back with for picks, I'm sure, on Monday. I got a formula I felt had a winning year last year. I've had 4 of the last 5 years of winning years in the NHL playoffs. So Ross, I am excited and ready to go for that action.
Well, I always call him one of the best handicappers in the country. But when it comes to the NHL, folks, I would put my money on Doug. Let me put it that way. That's how much respect I got for him as an NHL handicapper. And when I do it, I do very well. But some guys, I mean, I dabble in at the playoffs mostly. Okay. So Doug's doing it all season long. And sometimes, and if you're in this industry, you know, the NHL doesn't sell real well. So to have that perseverance and doing it day by day is a grind, and it pays off, because by the time this time of year comes around, he's got a very good record. And if you're a smart bettor and a smart shopper, you find the guys who do the best over the long haul. Anybody could have a 2-week streak. So Doug, you could find him at docsports.com, NBA on fire right now. And the NBA for me, 21-10 since April 1st, 68%. Did not use anything last night, Doug. I didn't like either one of those games, and I've been doing awfully well. And there's nothing wrong with taking a pass on occasion, buddy, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, sometimes taking a pass is a winning day. I did have one selection last night. I did have the Tigers and Twins game under the total of 7 to finish 5-0. But tonight, if indeed you get to this video on Thursday before this game goes off, I have a NBA playoff first round game of the year in the Philadelphia and Toronto game tonight, which tips at 7 p.m. Eastern. Remember, folks, we're taping on the 28th, your free picks in baseball 29th. But in case you get this, because it'll be up soon, my NBA money line picks this year, across the board, on every site I'm on, 15-0 with my money line picks. None of them have exceeded the threshold of -135, and also 22-1 since last year. This is my top play, Philadelphia and Toronto. If you look at this line right now, you'll see neither one of these teams are going to come close to getting to that threshold of -135. And my 10-star top plays, which are the equivalent of many people's best bets, 14-3 with my last 17, folks. Things are going well. Major League Baseball 10-star top plays since last year, 45-23. I don't give out big chalks. And my Major League Baseball 10-star top plays this year, 3-0 and 45-23 since last year. And that's getting it done, folks. I don't know why you wouldn't invest in either one of us. These free picks are great, but remember, folks, they're free picks. If they were good enough, we'd be using them as paid selections. Not that we don't want to win for you. Doug, any final thoughts before we go?
No, I think that pretty much covers it, Ross. Again, just looking forward to the exciting weekend, and a week from next week, Kentucky Derby time.
Yay!
Don't forget about that.
Yeah. Hey, so again, for Doug Upstone and Ross Benjamin, thank you for joining us today, folks. We appreciate all your support. If you have not subscribed, please do so. It costs you absolutely nothing. And while you're there, hit that alert or notification bell, and you'll be alerted immediately upon any of these free pick videos going up on our YouTube channel. Until the next time, good luck and take care, folks.